The Edmonton local section of the Chemical Institute of Canada, or CIC, was established over 60 years ago. There are about 15 people who sit on the executive of this local section. They meet about 10 times a year. Every year, the section runs an AGM with dinner and a guest speaker. Twice a year, the section has a major planning event. During the year, the section puts on at least 8 public chemistry events, such as tours, lectures, and demonstrations.
To move on to a Canadian example is Maud Menton. And Maud Menton, many people have forgotten, was the Menton half of the Michaelis-Menten equation in biochemistry. How many here knew that Menton was a woman? Oh, very good. I'm impressed.
The section also supports student conferences, puts on National Chemistry Week activities, and judges and presents awards at the Edmonton Regional Science Fair. There are over 50 people directly involved in putting together those events. In the last years, one particular event has stood out as the highlight of the year. This signature event is simply called Cafe CIC.
When I think of Cafe CIC, I think of a medium-sized coffee shop with a bunch of chemists sipping on their mochas.
I imagine a group of friends, colleagues in a nice, cozy place like this, talking over about what's new with their work, any new finding, discovery in their field of research, in a very casual, friendly setting, which is not far from reality, actually.
This public outreach event is an evening get-together that creatively combines food, drink, music, and chemistry in a total package that allows us to showcase the chemical sciences in an entertaining and real-world fashion.
Got to try a bit of everything, a bit of Scotch, a bit of haggis, and that was fun. So.
Was there any chemistry there?
There was a bit of chemistry, I guess. yeah. They showed how Scotch is made and what kind of chemistry goes into it, what kind of instrumentation there is.
This video provides a quick look at how the Edmonton local section of the CIC approaches organizing its events for the year using the Cafe CIC concept as a prime example.
I think Cafe CIC is more focused on finding a topic that's very relevant to everyday life, whereas the lecture that I've been to is very specific to a certain topic area. So you almost have to have some acquired knowledge before you attend a chemistry lecture, whereas Cafe CIC, you can just come in, enjoy learning about chemistry in everyday life.
Over the years, the local section has built up an extensive email network, which it uses to let people know about upcoming CIC activities.
Ever since I became a member and joined the executive, it's been the same consistent person, Lucio Galmini at Grant McEwen, who does all of the emailing, the advertising for all of the CIC local events.
They actually had colleagues at the college, and I don't know how they did this, but they convinced their colleagues who are in the music department, and I think they even had one in the biology department who was almost a professional singer, come in and do these little interludes. And it was magic, and since then it was really branded and labeled as Cafe CIC.
He knows I sing. He's come to several of my recitals and so on, and he just threw it out at me as if, you know, just whether or not I'd be interested in singing. And I'm always game to sing, so I said, sure, I'd be happy to.
We do charge, and it is, I wouldn't say necessarily cost recovery, but certainly cost responsive. So for the Scotch one, we charged a bit more because it was a little bit more expensive. But I mean, if you look at the market, when we announce that we're going to have one of these things, I think it fills up in 2 or 3 days. People hear about it and they want to get in there, and the cost is not a problem. So we generally try to break even, and sometimes we'll lose a little bit of money on it, but the point is not to make money. It's just to have a really good time and promote chemistry and all those good things.
We've involved students on campus here helping out with preparing for tonight, as well as, serving some of the cheese and wine later on. We have a physics professor playing saxophone with the musicians tonight.
The Edmonton section of the Chemical Institute of Canada is a very active local section. Twice a year, the executive meets for larger planning sessions. These sessions are relaxed and social. The year starts with a summer retreat and barbecue, at which the events for the following year are mapped out. The goal is to have at least one chemistry event every month. In December, at the Christmas social, the team meets again to debrief on past fall events and confirms upcoming spring events. During the rest of the year, the section chair will also often call a brief meeting just prior, usually an hour before, each event. This may seem like a lot of meetings in any one year. However, it should be remembered that not everyone comes to all of them. This drop-in system allows members the flexibility to be as active as they wish. This may vary from year to year, or even within any one year, depending on the member's own interest and available time. Although some of the faces may change, there is always enough critical mass and experience among the group to keep things going. So, what do local section members see as success? Why do people volunteer and participate? Why do they stay involved?
Jean Cooley said, well, we're having a tour of the Alley Cat Brewery tonight if you want to come out. And I was 15 minutes early because I hate being late. So of course I interrupted an executive meeting, and that was it. I was on the executive. You interrupt a meeting, you get absorbed into it, and then, yeah, I've been on the executive ever since.
In an event, we'll typically have a third of people who have no real chemistry experience. And for them to watch them as they explore chemistry or something that they've taken for granted, whether it be Scotch, coffee, or chocolate, I find that fascinating, just to sit back and watch that happen. It's rewarding, especially when you put a lot of time into planning it.
Without a doubt, the event highlight of the year for the Edmonton local section is the Cafe CIC. The topics for this public lecture have always been food or beverage related, and the event itself includes music, short chemistry talks, history, art, and chemistry of the subject, and an expert-led tasting as part of the evening. Cafe CIC topics over the past 5 years have included the chemistry of chocolate, wine, beer, tea, coffee, Scotch whiskey, and cheese. So, how do you organize a Cafe CIC, and what is its impact?
When you go to those CIC events, you realize that to be a scientist, you have to be a very creative, imaginative person who thinks outside the box and has a lot of fun doing it.
We have an upcoming Cafe CIC at the Faculty of Saint Jean, which will be an interesting experience, bringing a whole nother part of the Edmonton population, the French-speaking population, which is an exciting opportunity. I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes.
Translating the presentation tonight into French so that we have a bilingual presentation tonight. It was just so incredible, the information. It's going to be very interesting what you learn about just the chemistry in manufacturing cheese. Ce soir, ça va être vraiment intéressant parce que c'est sur le campus Saint-Jean. Et c'est le campus français du University of Alberta. Alors, ce que moi j'ai fait, c'est j'ai pris la présentation du Paul Gélin, puis j'ai traduit en français. Parce qu'il y a des gens qui vont être dans l'audience, dans le public, qui sont francophones d'ici sur campus. Alors, on a la présentation en anglais de Paul, mais aussi on a la présentation en français. Alors, on a 2 écrans devant. Et puis, alors, c'est vraiment un événement bilingue à Edmonton.
They evaluate the quality of cheese. They use a tool, and it's called trier. And with that trier, they try a cheese. Imagine that this is a big block, and I'm going to try it. and I pull a plug, as they call it. And now I work with the plug. The cheese graters do not taste. Because these cheese graters, they classically are called in to grate 40 different cheeses at one session. And if you would taste 2 or 3 or 4, your taste buds are shot, no matter what you do. But your smell never tires, and visually, you can also evaluate like this. I can go almost all the way before it's not snaps, but breaks very softly. So that's an indication that the cheese is weak, has a lot more moisture, and this is the other thing that they do. They work it in their palm, and they smell it.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for humor, so I just love it when I see chemists there who are passionate and very, very knowledgeable up in front of, the public, and now they have to explain the chemistry in some real terms, and they pull in bits of humor and put twists on chemistry so that people kind of understand that.
And I ended up in Minnesota studying the food science, learning what to do with whey, and gradually accepting the motto, where there is whey, there must be a cheese.
In the past, when it's been the chemistry of chocolate, you can kind of already have pre-wrapped chocolates ready to go, and you don't have to cut them 2 hours before the event so that they stay fresh. So with cutting 10 different cheeses into 120 pieces each and putting them on plates, it's been quite the challenge.
The Emmentaler type, the Propionibacterium type of cheeses are characterized by a sweetish flavor. Funny thing is, when we are talking about the propionic, it would be worth mentioning when people talk about chemicals, chemical additives and all these terrible things that the industry is poisoning us with, adding all these things into foods. Well, propionic acid is an additive used in bread making because propionic acid is very effective against mold. So it delays molding of bread, and if people tell you that this is really terrible what the industry is doing, you can respond. If you like Emmentaler, if you like Swiss cheese, that's what you eat all the time. An awful lot more than what they add to bread. So it's just kind of on the side.
I think this is a premier event for showing off the good facets of chemistry. Because as most chemists know, chemistry is neutral. Chemistry isn't good, isn't bad. Chemistry just describes the world around us. But the emphasis lately has been on all of the toxicity and the bad side of chemistry and nuclear waste and tailings ponds and all the rest of that. But of course that's a very important part of chemistry, but that's only one side of chemistry. Chemistry is also involved in a lot of everyday things that people take for granted that chemistry is used to improve. And a good example is foods and beverages and the safety of foods and beverages, but also their nutrition, their taste, and everything having to do with what we think about foods and beverages is related to chemistry in some way. So the Cafe CIC, in a light-hearted fashion, allows people to get a little glimpse of that and see that chemistry is not all just doom and gloom and bad things, but it actually has a lot of positive influences on our world, and it also is not only about esoteric high-end scientific things, it also very much has to do with everyday things such as food, beverages, construction materials, and all that type of stuff that we as chemists know, but of course the public doesn't really think about it that way.
It's hard to pick a favorite. I really enjoyed the chocolate one because it was my first one, I think, and I was impressed by how imaginative and entertaining and creative the evening was, and how so many different aspects were brought into the whole chemistry of chocolate. And it was just a really all-round good evening.
The chemistry of Scotch would have been my favorite if I had not been pregnant at the time and only able to smell the Scotches.
These Cafe CIC evenings have proven to be highly successful in Edmonton with both local section members and with the public. With a little effort and creativity, chemistry events like this could easily be organized almost anywhere.
I think anyone who walked off the street into one of these CIC Cafe events would have their eyes opened.
It was enough information and not too much over my head.
For me, the favorite part was just the chance to sample the cheeses and have the discussion about the cheese. You know, so you can say, okay, so I understand this is why this cheese is like this. This has this particular flavor, and understand how that flavor comes about, and then be able to understand. You know, we're buying cheese. You can say, well, I understand how this cheese is made, where it comes from, why it's made like this, what gives it its unique characteristics. And for me, that was having that information and background to be able to go shop for cheese. It was really interesting. It will be really interesting to take with me.
And I'll never eat cheese with the same
lack of knowledge.
Lack of knowledge, but it really has meaning. It was great.
Is this your first Cafe CIC you've been
Yes.
to? Okay.
Yes.
Would you ever come back to another one?
Yes.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much.
Great evening.
Okay, thanks. Thank you guys for putting this together.
Pleasure.
It's great.